And now, let's talk about Mr. Dmytryk for a moment, because this is a pretty fresh, invigorated film, directing style-wise, for a guy who was a real veteran at this point. What was your experience with him?
Well, I liked Edward. I didn't get to know him much because he was, but you probably know about the blacklisting. I obviously was very young, didn't really know much about it, but I did learn of it from the 50s trial. We watched television, and I learned a lot about what was going on television as a kid. And he gave names, he spoke. There were quite a few Hollywood actors that did come forward and name people, which, you know, good, bad, or indifferent was something that I understand was just a no-no amongst true liberals and Democrats, which was horrendous, to blacklist people. It's now used as like the word Kleenex. Blacklisting can cover not getting a job for saying something, or being a whistleblower is bad because you're giving information. I mean, all these connotations, and I think that he suffered from that. And the fact that he suffered, and this was sort of like a comeback picture, or a picture that he was getting to make now after many
He
years.
had gotten his career back.
He got it back
before this, but
maybe he wasn't working with major. I don't know the exact career path, but I know he was very subdued in this picture on the set, and very low key. So he wasn't involved in many of the conversations. It was very, very low, and hence we didn't really. I didn't really get to have a chance to know him socially, or we have many, many visits. Or there wasn't a lot of laughter with him on the set. With Greg, it was warmth and jokes. He was always telling a funny joke, very innocent and sweet.
That's so funny.
Never
Gregory Peck has always struck me as being on screen as somewhat humorless, and everybody who worked with him said he was a riot.
He was a wonderful man, had a great sense of humor, and a lot of energy, a lot of life. A lot of life. I mean, he was lovely. And later on, we got to know each other, and I was producing, and I had sold a 4-hour miniseries to television at CBS, and I went to him and asked him to play this incredibly great senator in 1908 who went to trial for the black soldiers in the Brownsville raid, and he was thrilled. And I got Robert Anderson to do a third draft of the script, and we would hoped that we were going to make this series, and he would have been he was in combat with Teddy Roosevelt, and I had wanted Ned Beatty to play Roosevelt, and I had an exciting time preparing this project. I have a garage filled with all the various drafts of this project, and he would have had a chance to do something quite extraordinary. And then the regime that was in at CBS suddenly went out, and they dropped the project. And I mean, I'm standing there, and I couldn't go back to Greg and say, "My God, they aren't doing it," because it was like a slight. Here we had one of the great actors of film, and I had Ned Beatty and maybe even Sidney Poitier to direct, and I'm sitting there with this wonderful project, and then suddenly the network is moving on with other. They were going. I don't know. Had it something to do with, the soldiers and maybe race. I don't know. All this stuff going on, but it really annoyed me. I mean, it was a bad time for me to have to tell Veronique, who was his wife. She was always saying, "Well, you're the producer. You'll make this happen," and we're waiting, and he's excited. And I was just heartbroken when I had to say, "Well, it's not happening at this moment. I don't know what to do." And then he gets older, and then I know he was ill, and that was the end of that. But and I think we all miss some of those great stars. Kevin McCarthy was an expert.
Glenn was here in Palm Springs a few years ago. Was a fabulous guest.
Wonderful. All these wonderful actors. But I don't live in the past, by the way, so it's not. I've only recently started coming to these events to see the old movies, and I find it very exciting because I can hopefully carry on the joy that we had in Hollywood, and that there were really some interesting movies made, and we, all of us, appreciate, and I know you do, and Alan Rhodey appreciates, because he continues this wonderful film noir series every year that you do here. I think it's a tribute to you to both of you, to keep the work alive, the films alive, to continue preserving it. It's very, very
I want to talk to you further about the work that you're doing in that regard as an acting teacher and with the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. But first, before I do that, I want to go back and ask you, because you had such an amazing out-of-the-gate start in Hollywood, working with some extraordinary people that I know these people are very familiar with and would like to hear about. So I do, but before I even talk about your first film, I want to note that I saw on eBay earlier today that the Diane Baker Rheingold beer can was selling for $350 on eBay. Yes. Do you have any of those in the garage at all?
One and my one left. It's all rusted. Someone found it, some probably in the ash can or something.
Oh, sorry.
But it's a rusted one. Yeah, those days. I was 18 years old.
Yeah, we better explain what this is.
I didn't know if I wanted to act, but then anyway, my mother took me to these auditions, or whatever you call it, the Beverly Hills Hotel, where they were looking for 6 Rheingold girls to travel for the Rheingold Beer Company. And I was a model, and so there had been nice models and people who had traveled years before. I think Falkenberg, was it Jane Falkenberg? One of them was Miss Rheingold. But anyway.
Arlene Dahl was a Rheingold girl.
Was she? Okay. Well, I'll have to mention that.
Elise Knox.
Huh?
Elise Knox also.
Elise Knox? Okay, but it was more than just a beer.
Carol Heller.
Huh?
Carol Heller.
Carol Heller, too? Fascinating. Okay, all these names. Anyway, I got picked, and I went through the line at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and it was these great actresses, Irene Dunn, Joan Fontaine, and Ida Lupino. And I spilled beer, I know, knocked over the entire bottle right in front of Irene Dunn. And she looked at me, and I looked up, and I was just so upset. Oh my God, I've spilled beer all over the table. And she said, Miss Baker, that may be an omen of good luck. The next thing I know, I'm in this thing, and I'm traveling with the other girls, and I got a chance to travel to New York. Well, my second family or parents were Melvin Douglas and Helen Gahagan Douglas, and so that meant I got to see them in New York after Helen lost the election for Senate. They moved to New York for he to get back to the theater. Excuse me. So I got to get to New York, but that contest allowed me to raise a little money to start acting lessons. And then going to USC for a year and a half, I just couldn't keep it up, and I wanted to act. It was a stepping stone to learning to act, and I knew that I had to do something with my life other than be in Rheingold Beer contest. I started studying and went back to New York to study with the people, with Meisner, Charlie Conrad, and then Estelle Harmon, and then ultimately with Stella Adler, and I'm now teaching. But I must say, the Rheingold beer can is funny. A lot of people stuffed the boxes in my family. I know my father and mother and everyone were out there stuffing the boxes.
And of course, your debut in the movie was in Diary of Anne Frank, as Margot Frank, Anne's older sister, for George Stevens. And I understand that you had very, very warm regard for Mr. Stevens as well.
I could say it, a major crush that a young girl can have on this incredible human being. I think it was his sensitivity and his, and I know he loved Millie and I. I mean, I think we were special to him. And I think the reason that he chose us probably was because we hadn't had any acting experience, and he wanted something real, and he didn't want actors necessarily. The three of us had less Richard and myself and Millie had had the least experience. The others had been a year in the play. Shelley wasn't in the play, but the others were. So he combined unknowns with all the known and all the known actors. So that was a great experience for me, a major. I mean, you can't, anyone working with George Stevens and that cast, it was a great experience. So you start from this top place, and then when you end up getting offers from people that say play in a movie about a piranha, and they'll offer you any amount of money. And I remember the day that I got this offer on a weekend. My agent was saying, "You got to do it. They're offering more and more money." And I said, "You don't get it. Nobody gets it. I don't want the money. I want the part." So I physically took the script. I had 30 pages, and I remember physically feeling so good. I threw it into the trash. I watched my hand go. I can see it now. I threw that script into the trash and said, "I have to do something else with my life to be in control of the work. Otherwise, I can't go on doing this kind of thing when they offer you money for nothing." And the real thing is you've got to, so I started producing. I ended up in India doing a documentary, and then several more documentaries on medical health. Norman Cousins was the name of my other documentary, and it was nominated for an Emmy. And then I did 3 after-school specials, and I produced for American Film Institute, the only film they ever made, from the monies from CBS. And I just said, I've got to be in control of what I want to make. I want to see good work. I want to make good things, and I can't sit around waiting for another spider movie or a piranha movie or something.
I know exactly what you mean. In fact, tomorrow we're showing The Damned Don't Cry here in the afternoon with Joan Crawford, and you were part of that weird phase of Joan Crawford's career, which is exactly what you're talking about. When you've done this extraordinary, exemplary work, and then they're giving you the crazy old lady parts, and these, the film we're talking about, of course, is Straight Jacket, the William Castle picture, which is
Don't applaud.
No, it's actually kind of a lovable film, another one of those that you made with George Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yes, where he gets his head chopped off, But what was it like? Does your feeling that you just expressed about I don't want to go there in my career perhaps have something to do with seeing Joan Crawford go through that at that stage of her
I
career?
never ever thought of it. I didn't go through that thought process. I never thought of it. But if you bring it to my mind now, I just recently got Donald Spoto sent me his latest book on Joan, and I read it in one night, just reading, fascinated. And I realized just how sad that her end was. And, it was from fear and not having anything else that I think caused it. I think fear causes so much ill health, if nothing else, and mental aberrations or whatever you have in life. I just think you've got to find out something that really matters to you, that you care about, and try to do it. Even if it isn't what you started out doing or where you made a success. Maybe success in terms of money is great for some people, but for me it's never been that. I could leave money because I never did a good job where I took it for the money anyway. So it didn't matter. It goes hand in hand. Good job, good work, and maybe you'll get a decent salary. But it never was the reason that I took something. I always had a hope that something would turn out, that it would be good. But looking at Joan's career, it was fantastic. Mildred Pierce, they just redid it. So to see her...
It's interesting. I'll have a sip while I ask you this question. I think that Joan Crawford is one of the most phenomenal people in the history of Hollywood, and I've always contended that she was her own auteur. They talk about all the directors who are auteurs or anything, and Joan Crawford was basically completely in charge of her career and her image and is a phenomenal character. But it's weird to see her holding on so tightly, which I think is the key to her eventually being seen as a character, a caricature of herself and sort of this camp figure. It's because I think you're seeing her holding on so tightly to being Joan Crawford is sort of what people are mocking. And I think that's what you're talking about in never allowing you to hold on so tightly to that one thing. And then you go out and start writing, producing your own things, which is actually what I find so incredibly admirable about what you do in your career. This woman is pretty extraordinary. That transition is not one that people normally are successful making. And when you did that Woman of Substance, the miniseries, which was one of the best reviewed miniseries ever created, and I still think, isn't it like the highest rated TV movie in English television history?
Well, I know it's still selling, that's all I know.